How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video, of course, we're going to talk about more about our next potential major Midwest and Northeast snowstorm that could happen anywhere between February 5th and 6th. So let's get straight into things by taking a look at the GFS model, see if there has been any updates compared to yesterday's forecast. And as of right now, there has been an adjustment regarding where exactly the snow is, at least compared to yesterday. Now we see the snowfall, the heaviest snowfall, further eastward and a little bit further northward, mainly relegating the heaviest snowfall right over the Northeast rather than the Midwest like it was earlier during the week. So the reason for this is due to the fact that the GFS model doesn't expect the instability to really be as strong until a little bit later by the time it approaches the Northeast. Because if we were to take a look at the height anomaly between the two runs, the 18Z run of today and the 18Z run of yesterday, you're going to see there's going to be a key difference. Here's a height anomaly today. We do see a decent amount of instability right here. And if we were to compare that to the 18Z run of yesterday, January 28th, we see that the instability isn't as strong, or is at least stronger earlier in the GFS model scenario, while in like I said, in the in today's scenario, we see that the ridging is a little bit weaker, which means that it doesn't encounter that strong instability until it's further eastward, like we see in today's run, where we see that the instability doesn't really begin until it's well far to the east. So that's the reason why there isn't as much snowfall in the Midwest in a scenario like this. And taking a look at the forecast hour, we are still 180 hours out. We're now getting closer, so the certainty will rise, of course, over the next few days, but there's still a lot that could change between now and Thursday of next week. So definitely stay tuned for more updates in terms of what the European model is forecasting as of its latest run at around that same time period. The European model is still not as confident as bringing that snowfall further southward. However, I will point out that the European model is, at least compared to yesterday, bringing the snowfall further southward. It's still mainly relegated to the extreme northern portions of the Midwest and the Great Lakes, so it's not necessarily affecting the more populated areas of the Midwest and Northeast, such as far south as Detroit, Chicago, Ohio. This would be a rain event for those areas, and even the Northeast as well, where the ridging is still much stronger in the European model scenario. However, it is interesting that the snowfall is further southward, at least compared to yesterday's run, which could indicate that maybe the European model is trying to follow the GFS model's trend, which would enhance the possibility of snowfall in the areas further southward. We're going to need to keep an eye on this trend if it continues over the next several days to really get a better idea of how high the certainty will be. So definitely keep a close eye on the European model, see if that trend continues, if the snowfall will move further southward. What I could say for certainty at this point is that we will see some sort of winter storm by the time we approach the Wednesday to Thursday timeframe of next week. The big question remains, as with a lot of snowstorms we're talking about beyond the 7-day mark, is who exactly it'll affect. And that really all depends on how strong the ridging is just to south of it. The European model is still expecting the ridging to be quite strong at around this time period. We clearly see this just dominating much of the United States, which should also contribute to much above average temperatures, but also force this storm system further northward if this scenario were correct. So we won't really get a good idea of how strong this ridge will be, like I said, until late this weekend, once this ridge actually approaches the southwestern United States. I'd expect that at around the Sunday time period, that's when we should get a much better idea of what's going to happen for the Midwest and Northeast and who exactly that heaviest snow will impact in those areas. So definitely stay tuned for more updates on this, but I do find it interesting that the snowfall is further southward in the European model scenario. So in those in the Great Lakes and Northeast, be prepared for a snowstorm, but I wouldn't say prepare in your area just yet, because there's so uncertainty regarding who exactly that snowfall will affect. But I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next few days regarding this forecast. But like I've been saying in my previous video, that isn't the only scenario of snowfall we're taking a look at in the United States, more specifically the Northeast, because there's still the 3 other snowstorms that you need to keep an eye on throughout the Northeast. So of course, we did have an area of snow showers move through last night for much of the interior Northeast. And now what's going on is lake effect snow. So if you're right up along the Great Lakes, you definitely need to watch out for the possibility of lake effect snow, but it shouldn't be that long lasting, mainly because the winds will end relatively quickly thanks to this ridge really that's gonna pretty much force the northwesterly flow out of the Northeast, and that should be able to wind down the lake effect snow. So it should be a quick lake effect snow event, but you still need to pay attention to that possibility throughout the Great Lakes. But our next winter storm for the Northeast that will mainly impact the interior Northeast is this upper level low that's located right over the Southwest at this point. That's expected to move eastward, encounter this ridge, and encounter just enough instability for a winter storm to develop for portions of Northeast. We see that this snowfall extends as far west as Detroit, and as far east as the Maine area, and as far south as potentially Albany, where you could receive a mixing of rain and snow. But I'll say anywhere that's just north of the Interstate 90 corridor, that's where you're more likely to receive accumulating snowfall. While if you're to the south of it, you're very unlikely to receive accumulating snowfall. We're at that forecast point. We're only around less than 3 days out from this actually occurring, so the certainty is very high at this point. And it even seems like the European model is also showing a good amount of agreement with the GFS model, bringing a little bit, leading a little bit more to the GFS model scenario, bringing that snowfall a little bit further southward. But we still see that the area of snow is just very limited in the European model scenario. It barely moves. The area of snowfall is much less because the European model expects a slow pressure system to move a little bit too far to the north, which will force the southerly winds to be a little bit too strong. Taking a look at the GFS model at the same forecast time period, we see that while the slow pressure system is further northward, since it moves further northward, it encounters more of that cooler air mass. While in the European model scenario, the storm system is a little bit too far south. So there's still despite the fact that we're around 72 hours out, there's still a little bit more uncertainty for the areas further northward, closer to the Canadian border, whether you'll receive accumulating snowfall or not. At this point, I'm still leaning a little bit more to the European model scenario, since it has been a little bit more reliable this winter, but we can't disregard the GFS model either. But in these areas, definitely at least stay tuned to your local forecast, because there could be pretty big changes. And if the European model scenario was correct, you shouldn't expect anything more than an inch of snow in southern upstate New York. But if the GFS model scenario is correct, then of course you'd expect a different story. So I'm still leaning more to the European model scenario, but don't rule out the possibility that maybe the snow could move further northward and bring heavier snowfall to the interior Northeast. So definitely keep tabs on this storm system over the next several hours, because I think it could any small changes could make a big difference in terms of how much snowfall accumulation you receive in those areas. Now, that's not the only Clipper system. Like I said, we're taking a look at. There's another one which I do believe, oddly enough, has a little bit more certainty than this storm system that's a little bit closer in the future, because the European model and the GFS model have been showing a good amount of agreement, bringing a decent amount of snowfall right over New England, and this impacts Boston as well, New Hampshire, Vermont, as far south as Albany. You might get involved with some accumulating snowfall, and this even extends into Maine. And the GFS model is showing a fairly similar forecast, which makes me believe that this forecast will sort of develop in this sort of fashion. Of course, we're still around 4 to 5 days out there. Still, this forecast is certainly subject to change, but with Both the GFS and the European model showing similar forecasts. I do believe we should see an area of mostly 1 to 3 to 3 to 6 inches of snowfall right over New England. So definitely keep that in mind going into the Monday time frame of next week for Boston, New Hampshire, Vermont, extending into upstate New York and into Maine as well, because I think that'll definitely be very important to take a look at over the next few days. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.